So just an overview. It's going to be a very quick, hype, upbeat session. Yep. Thank you. All right, so I'm Tulasi, and basically I work for Lipad, yeah, and one of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis is basically develop content, yeah, so I do that. But today I'm going to play the role of an MC, and I'm going to help these wonderful people out. Right, so I saw that you guys took pictures just now. Yeah, so there will be a lot more picture-taking sessions later, so hold your horses, yeah. If you look at what's on your table right now, okay, there's a sheet. I just want to kind of set the tone for today's session. So the next hour and a half, what's really going to happen, right? So don't mind me asking you all to just help us out do something. So if you look at the sheet, the first part actually says, two things that resonated with you when you were in school. So could you just list down very quickly two things that resonated with you when you were in school? So for example, for me, my English teacher was amazing, right? She did these very good literature sessions, and that's the reason why I did a degree in English, master's in literature. So she kind of set the tone of what I was going to do, and I went on to my tertiary education. So it could be anything. It could be someone had an impact, an incident that happened, you know, so something like that. So very quickly, 2 minutes. Yes, so we call this activity here in Lipad 2 stars in a wish. So these are the 2 stars, 2 great things that happened when you were in school. Okay, so there's no right or wrong answers here. This is not a test, okay? we don't test anyone here. If you can't think of 2, just 1 is fine. Yep, that's fine, all right? So if you've gotten that one incident, I'm sure you remember, right? A prominent teacher, a prominent friend, you know, someone who really impacted your life, you know? So, right, okay, if you have that down, if you look further below, right, there is the wish. So we're basically trying to gauge, so what is one wish that you have for the Malaysian education system that would have enhanced your experience when you were in school, right? So if you can't remember, because, for example, you might be too far back, so yeah, it's okay, we don't judge here, right? If it's too far back, it's all right. Perhaps a wish that you have for your child, right? Or, you know, your nephews, your nieces, you know, anyone that's close to you, a child that's close to you, yeah? Okay, I see some people writing essays. I'm a bit scared. Okay, guys, don't write essays. It's just supposed to be something quick, like off your head, yeah, on the top of your head. Ah, can relate. Trust me. Yes. It can be anything, a wish that you have, right? Okay, so very quickly, do any of you want to share your stars? Your stars. Anyone? Any takers? No? I shared my star. Yes?
The first 2, is it?
Yeah, so you can mention one as well. It's up to you.
Yeah, one is bad incident also is okay. Yeah, I think I remember the bad incident more than a good incident, whereby the music teacher actually throw, you know, the student's book, throw my book particularly on the floor from far. So from there, we don't actually have much, the impact is there, you know, until now. So you can imagine if a teacher done something bad, then it will influence the student as well, beside the good. That's our...
Right, that's true, yeah, yes. Yeah? Yeah, that's actually a wish, right? That your teacher doesn't, yeah, but it's okay. Anyone else, a star? Yes. I love volunteers.
I did Form 6 for a very short time, like around 2 months. And I had a temp teacher teaching us history. And she taught us sejarah, I think Asia Tenggara or something like that. And despite the fact that she was a temp teacher, she was actually a fresh graduate, or maybe she was still doing her undergraduate. She changed my views of history, and I started to enjoy history in a way that I never did. And it has actually opened up a lot of curiosities in me that led me to study media after that. Yeah, until today, I think if I didn't become a journalist, I may have ended up becoming a history teacher.
That's nice. Yes, all right. Okay, maybe one more star? Yes.
Hi. So when I was in school, one of my favorite competition that I participated in was a storytelling competition. And it was one of the memorable things because it's also something related to my family. My dad made the costume for me for the storytelling competition. And it was my first time being in front of a huge crowd. But you know, doing a performance in front of people, I started to realize that I enjoyed performing on stage and also telling stories to people, and in the end, ending up having the first place in the competition. That was the beginning of my my journey to be in journalism, actually, to tell stories to people.
Right, thank you. So before we move on to the wish, just to draw a connection, this is an activity that we do with a lot of teachers in schools, a lot of middle leaders in schools, and the reason is sometimes we know that the reason why we are where we are today is because of a lot of that's happened while we were in school, people who have influenced us, right? So it always gets a drawback from that. So now moving on to the wish, this is the interesting part. This is where it gets really interesting. So anybody wants to share a wish? You can just shout out your wish, actually, because my friend Sangeeta is going to just jot down point forms. Any wish, just shout out. Yes.
A teaching approach that takes different learning needs into account, because not everyone is able to catch up with what's going on in class.
Okay, different learning needs. I truly advocate that. I wasn't a straight A student in school. So, all right, anyone else? Yes.
No more streaming. So instead of arts and science stream, allow kids to take maybe a biology class and a literature class.
You can see my colleagues are very excited. And we'll tell you in a brief moment why, okay? Maybe someone from this table. This is how we get students to get involved, you know.
I wish that the Malaysian education system should collaborate more with the industries to have more exposure. For that, the new generation now have more view on the reality of the world as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm still trying to think the use of algebra in my day-to-day job. Okay, so one last one. Anyone? Yes.
The school should be taught life skill, yeah, because I think that is more important than just education and robotic, you know, just following the stream.
Yep, very true. Anyone else wants to add anything besides what's been mentioned? Yeah? All right, so now this is where, okay, yes, sorry.
Just to say, I'm going to use the words authentic, relevant assessment, school assessment, yeah.
School assessments. Oh, okay, yes. Authentic, relevant assessment, okay? All right, so now to kind of just draw the link of what's going to happen today, right? I'm just going to hand over to Nina, okay, to Nina and ZO, basically, to kind of outline the wishes, right, and how LIPAD plays a part in that.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. We're so excited because all of the things that you've said actually draw a connection to what we do and what we'll be talking about later today, about the work that we do in schools in Leap Ed. For example, throwing a book. That can often be a reaction of a teacher who doesn't know how to handle the situation. It's the frustration that comes out. So what we do at Leap Ed is work with teachers to come up with different strategies of how to, manage a classroom and how to make students engaged rather than scared. We want learning to be fun. What else was there? About enjoying history. So all the stars that you shared are the things that we want to build on, because we have to recognize that there's a lot of good that goes on the system. So all those shining stars, literally teachers who are sometimes unrecognized, unsung heroes, we work with them, we recognize them, we help them to grow and develop. So, for example, the storytelling as well, that is part of our holistic approach. And again, I think that was someone else, who was it that said that it's not just about the content, about the education, it is about developing the character and the values and the skills to succeed in life. Because, as this gentleman said, the future is changing, yes? We cannot educate for content. We have to educate for skills, for lifelong skills, to be able to adapt and be relevant in an ever-changing world. Different learning needs, spot on. That is exactly what we do, or we try and work with schools in order to come up with, the term is called differentiation. How do you deal with different learning needs? You have to plan your lessons so that you can have a mixed ability classroom. Like someone said, streaming, we should end streaming. Yes? What else? No streaming, more collaboration we've mentioned, authentic, relevant assessment. Well, that was my personal favorite contribution, and I will be talking about this later. Zedo?
Well, I have to say that's the first time when I come here, I never met so many people from media before. Not that I have done anything wrong. Usually that was my perception. When you have done something wrong, all the media will come and look at you. And I told Nina I'm very, very nervous about meeting all of you, but when I see some of you actually saying all these things, it assures me that I'm actually with a good company. I think I'm actually with people who really believes in what we are trying to do. And I totally understand the impact when a teacher does something like that. It does bring down your morale a bit. And I totally understand the impact when you mention about the history teachers, because I have one teacher who was a wonderful teacher in my previous school, who will, every time when she teaches geography, every time she wants to introduce new topic, new country, she will wear something that comes from that country. So that actually got me very, very interested in that. I almost quit my accounting classes, but because I was tied by bond and there were lawyers come in, so at least I got to do it now. Okay? So without much ado, I just want to probably pass back to Tulasi, but I just want to introduce everybody to our team in Leap Ed. Okay, I'm Zulhaimi. I'm the managing director, unfortunately. Because the reason being is I just felt there are more capable people within my team. I'm supported today by Nina Adlan, the one that you actually see very, very passionate about it. And when she argues with me, she's also like that. Okay, she's our general manager for education development. Okay, you can just imagine we develop this kind of kids. Your kids could be like that. Okay. I'm also supported by Kasuma Satria. He's our general manager, operations delivery. So the connection is she and her team will develop the content. He and his team will deliver at schools. We will tell you a little bit what we do actually at schools. We do kind of training, but it's not just that. It's about developing the teachers so that they can develop the students. I also have another person, Conrad. Conrad is our general manager for corporate services division. So all of us are divided into divisions, but when we do things, we always put one thing in front, a child. Okay, because we believe that whatever we do, we truly care for the impact that we are bringing to the kids, the impact for future generation from Malaysia. The rest of my team, I just want to see Dr. Susila. You'll be seeing her a lot, a very data person, okay? No nonsense, okay? But in development, my favorite guy, if you happen to see him personally later on, he will tell you a lot of colorful stories. His name is Brian John Ambrosio, but he's not Italian, he's Australian. Okay? Next to me is Mr. Mick Quigley, he's from UK. Andy Watson, do not get duped by his appearance, he's a very funny guy. Okay, this is Sangeeta, our Rara lady. Aznim, our stakeholder engagement with engagement people, with her teammates Marni. We have our media person, Afa, who's actually a baby to this company, but have done a lot of good work. Said, our impact development guy. We don't call business development. We call it impact development because to us, whatever we want to do, what is the impact that it carries to the organization? I have my video guy here, Hazik, my photographer guy here, Joe, his name is Hafizul, Annette. Annette is the one who actually developed content, and she's from Malta. And you will love her accent. Dr. J, Dr. Jayanti, I call her DJ. She's also from the development team. And of course, as somebody mentioned, Conrad, I miss Hisham, our techie guy. He's very quiet, but very smart up here. Okay? So, and Faiza, from our branding and marketing, working the slides. She's normally the one who actually wrote most of my speech. Because unfortunately, unlike you guys, I'm not so good in my writing. I wish I could have your skills, but yeah, anyway, that's all from us. I'll pass back to Tulasi.
Thank you, Zedo. So, yeah, that's how personalized we are. As the managing director, just to echo that, Zedo knows everybody in the company by name, right? Okay, so thank you. Now, just a short snippet of, you've got your wishes on the board, so just having that in mind, we're just going to show you some of a snippet on what is it we actually strive for. Yes. Okay, yay. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our MD, Zedo, to just walk you all through.
Thank you. I can't wait to take the mic from you, Tulasi. Okay, first and foremost, again, I would like to welcome. So what I will do today is I'll be explaining a bit about LIPAD. Then my colleague Nina, Dr. Susila, and Brian will carry you through in general, what we do, why we are doing this. I normally got the boring stuff introducing the company, so. Okay, that's me before Hari Raya Puasa and all the open house. This is me now after the open house. Okay, so who are we? Can we click? Okay, thanks. Okay, this is basically who we are. I just want to give a bit of context for this one. Back in 2009, when there are a lot of talks about where is our education in Malaysia is going, there was a discussion between the Ministry of Education, representing the public sector, and Khazanah Nasional, representing the private sector, about what can we do in order to bring our education to the next level that can create more globally competitive kids. So arising from that, they come up with this program called Trust School Program, which my colleague later on will explain a bit more, or I will be explaining that a bit more later on, where Khazanah actually gave birth or incorporate two companies, Yayasan Ami, Yayasan Ami, and LIPAD. We are like twin sisters conjoined at birth, you know. The idea is we set up in 2010, we become a social enterprise. Reason being is we want to make sure that whatever we do, we are not profit motive. We need to generate enough income for us to be sustainable, but we are not here to make mega profit like other Khazanah company is. Because this is basically what Khazanah is trying to do to also help the country. Okay, we do this in partnership with Ministry of Education Malaysia, whereby Yayasan AME signed an agreement called Public-Private Partnership Operating Management Agreement. Okay, sounds very, very mouthful. Whereby Yayasan AME then appoint LipEd to become the operator of the program. And that's how LipEd started. And from there, we take on that program to become multiple programs so that we'll be able to actually, are you okay? Am I boring you? He doesn't agree with me. But, all right, what's your name? Esfahan, okay. Welcome to LipEd, Esfahan. Okay, so where was I? So what we are, from that program called Trust School program, we are looking at school transformation, leveraging on transforming schools, including the teachers and the leaders in the school, that will actually have direct impact to the kids. Because we believe the idea of if you transform a classroom, if you transform a teacher, it becomes more sustainable than when you actually do intervention at the students. Because teachers are like wines. The longer they are, the more experienced they become, the better the outcome of the students who ever go to that teacher. So that was our key belief. Okay, and after that, with our ever-expanding program, we start collaborating with the like-minded parties. I'm sure some of you would have heard Teach for Malaysia. Okay, we actually have a program where we actually have a tripartite collaboration between Yayasan AME, Teach for Malaysia, and us. And last year, we actually collaborated with Yayasan Pahang, whereby we also bring our intervention to a tahfiz school that was owned by Yayasan Pahang in Kuantan. So what we are trying to do here is like, regardless what is your background, what is the type of schools, because later on we will explain to you, we also have vernacular schools in our system. It's about imparting that knowledge within the classroom effectively. Okay, so in that classroom we use differentiated learning, we do multiple intelligence, we talk about classroom management and behavior and things like that. Okay? So what do we do? Okay, so again, I mentioned just now, we are the homegrown education service provider. And what we do, we undertake education transformation program. And our education transformation program supports the leaders, teachers, students, parents, and community. And in doing so, we actually do it together with the school itself and in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. And to do this, we are quite lucky. When the Malaysian Education Blueprint was launched in 2013, Sekolah Amanah or Trust School program is already part of that. Because we wanted to make sure that we produce kids that actually equipped with these 5 critical skills. Like you mentioned just now, about having confidence, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and coexistence. Because this is very, very important for you to actually have that skill. Because once you actually have that skill, you can actually pursue whatever interest that you actually have, and therefore the content will come in naturally. And I'm sure a lot of us, when we are at SPM, we don't know what to do. But later on, a lot of things that we learn in school suddenly clicks because we understand life more, because we are also equipped with the right skills. Agree? Disagree? Right? And of course, in doing so, we implement evidence-based international best practices. What does that mean? I will get my team to actually explain in further details afterwards. So how do we do it? Just now I mentioned about Trust School programs. We actually, from Trust School program, if I were to actually follow the sequence, this is what LipEd started with. And then somewhere 4 or 5 years ago, we started with Gusto. And then I will explain to you later on what these programs are about. It's ground up school transformation. And from there, we started DTP Aman. This is a program where we actually work with JPN and PPD. For those of you who are familiar, JPN is State Education Department, and PPD is a District Education Department. And then from this, we actually break down what are the elements inside here that when we translate it into mini series of training and continuous professional development program called LeapEd Core Series. And last year, we actually have this program called Islamic School Enhancement Program, and this is where we work with Tahfiz School with Yayasan Pahang. Okay? Okay, so in Trust School program, it is actually a comprehensive and sustainable school transformation program that addresses these 5 dimensions. Number 1 is learners, and learners here does not include just students. It also includes the teachers, and also there's, as we call it, senior leadership team, or people would say pengetua, guru besar, the penolong kanan, the senior assistants. That is part of the learners. Secondly, what happened in the classroom. That is very, very important. I think I'm sure some of us see like very skilled teachers who comes out from who come from education institution, but they are not able to implement it in the classroom because the environment is also not very conducive for them to do that. And then of course the schools. This is very, very important because it creates the overall atmosphere and environment. And I'm sure all of us, when we are put in the right environment, we can grow better and we create that culture that is sustainable. And we also work with community. I know that in LeapEd, it becomes almost a cliche, but we believe in this. It takes a village to educate a child, right? Yeah? Okay. And of course, we work with the system. The system here refers to the supporting administration from the JPN and the PPDs, and of course, and the MOE. Okay? Go. So the idea is, when we do this, we want it to be scalable. So in whatever schools that we actually are involved in, they are able to spread this to other schools. And then we also wanted to make it sustainable via making it part of the embedded culture within the schools. Okay, because believe it, first you have to do it, but if you do it many, many times, it becomes a habit, and if you do it in a longer period of time, it becomes a culture. And once it becomes enculturated, that's where the sustainability factor comes in or kicks in. Okay, the DTP Aman is basically from our learning. If you go to school, we also notice that there are also another factor that's very, very important to ensure sustainability, the supporting function. I think in this case, what we do a bit of a reverse. Instead of we go direct to the school, we work with the JPN and PPD and upskill them to support the school that will yield into a holistic child development. And it's actually a bit more longer runway, but we believe that we need to actually do this to ensure the overall sustainability. For your information, Finland takes about 30 years of journey in order to be where they are at the moment. We are already in existence for about 9 years, and we are already starting to make that traction. Okay, so under DTP Aman, we work with the JPN Kedah and the 9 PPDs in that particular state. The idea is to actually rally the team who are going to the school, because PPD also have their pedagogical coaches that support the school. And these people must be supported by other functions. We call it organizational enhancement team, like their finance, their HR, to support this team. Because even in a corporate, trying to relate in a corporate scenario, whereby you actually have a SWAT team, and they go to school and they find out certain teachers are not working or bad attitude. To expect that person to change their attitude is going to be unfair. But what do? You bring it to HR. And the HR in this organization, in our education system, is at PPD and JPN level. So the idea is this team will go to schools, support the PGB, support the teachers. If there are issues with financials, infrastructure, and things like that, they will actually work with these teams. And this team also has to be aligned to understand how to prioritize. Like if I've been in one of the schools, when we actually went in, there are 70 people in the classroom. It's almost unheard of. But if the reason being is that people over here and people over here didn't see what the school is facing. You can talk about having an active learning, but one teacher to control 60 to 70 kids, that's almost impossible within an hour. How can you do that, right? So there is a need that this function also align so that they become equitable, supportive, they nurture the culture for lifelong learning, and they also understand what 21st century pedagogical is all about, right? It's no longer about, when we first joined in, I hope this doesn't get recorded. Can you promise me? Okay. Okay, sorry. But let's put it this way. I think gone are the days where schools, in our schools at least, where the emphasis of classroom is how to make it beautiful. I think in our classroom, how to make it effective that will support the learning. That was the idea. And along the way, the class become beautiful too, but an effective, beautiful classroom. Okay, that sounds media safe, right? I have to check with Nina all the time. She's my media guru. Okay? Okay. In Gusto, we are also trying to replicate with Trust School program, but in a more gradual, organic way. What we did, in Trust School, the moment we enter into a class, into a school, we straight away work with the administration, with all the forms teachers, and transforming the entire aspect, including the finance part of the schools. But in Gusto, we started with Form 1 first. And over a period of 5 years, that transformation actually goes all the way Form 5, all the way to Form 5. The focus, if in Trust School program, we focus on those 5 dimensions, including the system, community, and the leadership as well. But in Gusto, we just focus on the teaching and learning only. And this is actually our pilot program that we work together with Yayasan Ameh and Teach for Malaysia. And these are the 5 schools that we actually work with, 2 in Perak and 3 in Pulau Pinang. And the basis of the selection of these schools are the schools where TFM have their alumni there. Okay. Okay. This is our latest impact development that we actually have developed, whereby, in a true sense, we actually work with our like-minded party, which is Yayasan Pahang here, to identify the needs of the school. They actually have this school called, a private school called Mahat Tahfiz Negeri Pahang. Interestingly, this Mahat Tahfiz Negeri Pahang, in terms of their SPM result, they have always been in top 10. But what Yayasan Pahang realized is, these kids who produces strings of A's, they are never able to actually compete globally. So hence the track for their development has always been an ustad or ustazah. But actually, just because you'll be a good Muslim, apologies if I use this, but as a good Muslim, you have to be a good Muslim who are an accountant, who are a lawyer, who are whatever you are, you must embrace those good values. And then you also must be able to articulate, have that problem-solving skills and those things. So, and that's why we started with this Islamic enhancement program. We just look at how things are being taught so that they will be able to correlate, so they are able to actually talk and speak to people without fear of judging, right? And this is actually, we talk about progressive education within Malaysia. And look, we are in Malaysia, whether we like it or not. Last time we used to have 3 main races, Malay, Indian, and Chinese. But now we have multiple nationalities as we speak. Even within LibEd, I have people from Malta, Italian, Australian, right? Or British Malaysian. Finnish, we have British Malaysian there. And so on. So how do we embrace this? We need to be able to create that inclusivity. And this is what we are quite excited to work with Yayasan Pahang on this one. So, okay, I will not bore you with further details. We can actually chit-chat. Last but not least, this is where we look at all the elements in all those programs and we translate it into mini training program. And we name it LE Core Series, targeting into 3 main groups. The school leadership. I think what is very, very important, what they say, the tone at the top is very important in driving education transformation. The middle leaders, these are a very, very important group and a critical element in our program because they provide that glue between leaders and also teachers. And they were the one who actually worked to coach teachers, to support teachers in terms of pedagogical skills and other classroom management skills. And of course, teachers becoming the major lever for children's education. Okay. So where do we do it? So this is our coverage. As I mentioned before, we have Trust School program. I will explain to you a little bit about TSP 1.0, the one in green. TSP 1.0 is the one that we actually started off in 2010, but we also realized that along the way, we need to also move. We talk about changing the dynamics of the world. We also in LeapEd are very mindful of that education is a continuous evolution, right? And that's why last year, or this year, we started with TSP 2.0. In TSP 1.0, we are a bit more, scripted approach. But in TSP 2.0, we become more bespoke. That means we actually go to skills. One of the learnings that we actually have, no two schools in Malaysia have the exact profile, even though they are sitting next to each other. Okay? And even though sometimes you felt like, for example, in one of the schools that we operate, the surroundings is actually an affluent society, but the school, the students that actually went there are not from those backgrounds. They're actually from the nearby slums or very marginalized society. So how do you actually create that connection? Okay. Gusto, here, 5 in Penang, 3 in Penang, and 2 in Perak. Our DTP Aman covering Pahang, and with DTP Aman, we actually, Kedah, okay, covering Kedah, that actually work with 1 JPN, 9 PPDs, and 64 schools. Yeah. And we have ISEP in Pahang, 1 school in Pahang. Are you okay? Anybody can help? Huh? Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is the total impact. We actually have a coverage of 13 states. The idea that we actually want to have is like we create schools that will become a teaching schools to other schools. Already some of these schools, like especially in Sarawak, they're having an impact. We hope that, right now we have about a total of 160 schools, but there are 10,000 schools in Malaysia. How do we actually make that connection with the rest of the schools? That's why it's very important to create that scalability and sharing. And I think this is the reason why today we call you to talk to you about, what we actually do. Because education is everybody's business, So we have 5, these are total 160 schools covering states. The only state that we don't have right now is Malacca. Okay, don't ask me why. Okay. So we have 160 schools. We cover about 440 school leaders, 6,000 teachers, 71,000 students. We have 200 LeapEd education advisors. Okay. We have 27 leadership in PPD, 41 school improvement subject coaches, right? And school improvement partners, right? 41. And we have 37 PPDs covering the Trust School program, TSP, our DTP Aman, as well as our Gusto. So we create the connection. We work with everybody, regardless what your background is. Because to us, at the end of the day, it's all about growing a child. We don't really care who you are. If you have the right intention, we will work with you. Okay. And while you are doing this, I think it's very, very apparent from the very beginning, because we really believe every child deserves a great future. And one of the reasons why I personally believe in this, because once upon a time, I was also from a family background that doesn't have that future at that particular point of time. And when to be where we are and knowing how the teachers have supported me along the way, I felt it's time for us, all of us, the like-minded people, to actually pay back or pay it forward. So I end my presentation there, and I pass this to Nina. I will look sorry. See, I don't want to let it go. Okay, so we will have a Q&A later on, so we just hear all of them. So Nina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Zado. Okay, So Zedo says, why are we doing this? Why we're doing this is because we believe every child, and it's so lovely to have, a baby in the room because it kind of, symbolizes what we're doing here. We believe that every child deserves a great future. But the question is, what does the future hold, right? And what we do know is that the future is ever-changing. And if we just think back to Malaysia in the past 12 months, what are the seismic changes that have taken place, right? So what we do know is that the future is changing. So unfortunately, our education system doesn't seem to be changing along with that. So what does a 21st century education look like? And I think the best way that we can get this is by watching a short video. So over to the video, 2-minute video.
Your son is a failure. He's barely passing my class, and with grades like this, I'm just not sure what kind of future he's gonna have. What do you have to say for yourself? You're supposed to graduate this year.
Listen to Mr. Johnson. What kind of future do you think you're gonna have?
With all due respect, don't call me a failure. Failure is an event, not a person, in fact. And you talk about the future, Mr. Johnson, but you're not preparing us for that.
Excuse me?
Just listen to what I'm saying.
This should be good.
Would you agree that in the future, most careers will become automated?
Yeah, so?
So the people who succeed will have to be curious, innovative, with resilience to adapt to new changes.
What's your point?
My point is, the focus in this school is not on that. It is on regurgitating information and test taking, and that's just real. But in today's world, creativity is the most important leadership skill.
Oh, that's how you feel.
You don't have to believe me, but maybe you will believe the 1,500 executives who recently said creativity is the most important leadership skill. See, pretty soon, no one will be hired because of what they know, because who cares what you know or if you've memorized a fact? We've got Google and Siri for that. In the future, people will be hired because of what they can do with their knowledge. Can they creatively solve real-world problems, not just follow instructions or directions and bubble in multiple-choice questions? So, Mom, that's why I'm stressed, because these robotic tasks we learn in school should stop. Because no one can do a robot's job better than a robot. Billionaire founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, said that we should not compete with artificial intelligence, but instead focus on developing unique human intelligence. Mr. Johnson, drills are for teeth, not the human mind. So these repetitive knowledge-based tasks we must leave behind. Or in the future, you're gonna find a lot of people graduating out of your class right into the unemployment line. See, many top companies today don't look at grades. Mom, that old way is expiring. Google has been quoted as saying GPAs are worthless criteria for hiring. Founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, agrees. So I say this with unease and sorrow. If you continue to teach today as you taught yesterday, then you rob us students of tomorrow.
Okay, so I think that's quite a powerful short video that kind of expresses what we're trying to do. Yes, because moving into the future, we need to survive and thrive. I don't know whether you've come across this term before, the VUCA world. What is VUCA? VUCA is volatile. It's uncertain. C is complex. A, it's ambiguous. Right? So our education system needs to create and nurture people who can cope with the uncertainties and the complexities and the ambiguities of the future. Okay? Not memorize facts. Yeah? So if we go to the next slide, in the video, they said that the jobs of the future, the manual, repetitive tasks, that they're going to be done by robots. And no one can do a robot's job better than a robot. If we look at the predictions for the future, at least 60% of the workforce will require non-routine cognitive skills. Cognitive meaning people who can think, people who can evaluate, people who can solve problems, people who can make decisions. All the other jobs will be done by AI or by robotics. I mean, even today, right? We have driverless trains. We could technically have pilotless airplanes, but people still feel the comfort of having a person in the cockpit. But the point being that moving forward, our education system must prepare our children to be able to think. Can you have the next slide, please? So what do we need? We need future people who have effective communication, that they're comfortable with ambiguity, that they don't have to be in this box and everything has to be either black or white. Yeah, sometimes things are gray. So you need people who can cope with ambiguity and can problem solve from that ambiguity. I think if we authentic, thank you, the gentleman who said authentic. So we need assessment and curriculum that is authentic, meaning real stuff, right? Not hypothetical stuff. So very simply, even if you're learning fractions, bring in a pizza, okay? Make it authentic, make it something that children can connect with. And this is especially what we found in the context some of our schools have got, for example, Orang Asli community. Now, the issue is with them is that a lot of our cultural presumptions just don't have any meaning for them. So it is about, for every child, finding examples that they can connect with, that are authentic for them. Okay, so next. So these are the global shifts that we're seeing in education. So I'm not going to bore you with all the literature and the research, but what we see is a movement away from a scripted, or what we call an Edu 1.0 approach. A scripted approach is where everything is prescriptive, everyone has to do the syllabus, complete this on time, everything is focused on academic results, towards a system of, yes, there we are, towards an Edu 3.0 approach, where learners determine their own learning, right? So it is about learning how to learn and not being told what to do. Yeah, it's about finding the autonomy in learning, finding that joy of learning, wanting to learn, learning from our mistakes, having that safe space to make mistakes and to move on and to solve problems. So these are all the things that we're trying to encourage in 21st century teaching and learning. So it's not just about academic achievement, right? In Edu 2.0, it's a space where potential is maximized, but we move on to Edu 3.0, where schools become spaces that nurture lifelong learning, because learning doesn't stop. Because the content will always change, right? But as we said, it's not knowing the content, because at a click of a button you can find anything out from Google or Siri. It's about being able to evaluate that content. It's about being able to apply that content to real-world situations. So if we click back. So those are some of the global shifts that are taking place throughout the world. Now, in Malaysia, we are also following, in the heels of that trend. So even if you look at the MAB, the Malaysian Education Blueprint, it's a fantastic document. It does lay out a very clear pathway in terms of where we need to be, okay? Whether or not, the policies and the content in that blueprint are being implemented to their full effectiveness, that's a different question, and I think that's where LEAPED comes in. What we are trying to do is not so much dictate the what of education, but the how of education. Yes, for us, when we go into a trust school, we take the existing infrastructure, we take the existing teachers, existing syllabus, existing students, and we try to transform within those parameters. We don't come in and say, oh, we're the expert, don't do this, don't do that, right? It's about transformation from within the system, within the resources that we have. Okay, and I think that basically leads me on to the next point, which is what has been the impact of our Trust School program? I've explained to you a little bit about the global context, what we're trying to achieve, what we're striving for, but do we have any proof that this program works? Well, that's Dr. Susila, but before I hand over to Dr. Susila, I can wager you, I won't bet because that's haram, but I can bet that if you go into a trust school, you will feel something. There is a palpable difference. Some of those, the videos can't capture it, yeah, but earlier on when you saw, kids enjoying and learning and talking to each other and teachers facilitating learning, those are all things that you will see in a trust school. So there is a palpable difference. But the issue is, do we have data? Yeah, because at the end of the day, we are evidence-based. So I'm very pleased now to hand over to Dr. Susila, because last year we conducted a very comprehensive impact study, which now provides us with some very useful insights and data. So over to you, Dr. Susila.
Thank you, Dina. Hi everyone. Okay, when I joined in 2016, actually, the first question that, was thrown to me is, we know things are happening in the trust school. We can feel it, we can sense it when we go into the schools, but we need data because we need to show people, and people won't believe us unless we have data. So in 2016, the monitoring and evaluation team embarked on an impact assessment study. It was a big exercise that we did. It took us about between 6 to 8 months. We took a sample of those 83 schools. We went into those, there was about 20 odd schools. We did like what you would call in a corporate term, 360. Right? So we spoke to everybody within those schools. We kind of assessed not really assessed. We did an exercise with the teachers, with the SLTs, with the students, with the parents, the whole school community, including the parents, right? So what we did was we put out surveys. Obviously, when we started the trust school, we obviously had a design. We had some assumptions. We had our hypothesis. This is what we would do, and if we did this, this is what would happen, and this is where the impact would be. So now it was actually time to go and assess the school against those constructs or against those dimensions that we, at the beginning, hypothesized, for instance. So we did questionnaires, we had surveys and questionnaires, we had interviews and focus groups, we had observations. So we did not want to just talk to people and assume things, right? We wanted data. We also wanted to triangulate that data. So we wanted multiple data points to say the same thing so that we can then be convinced that our data is valid and authentic, right? Okay, so I know everybody's looking at the numbers. Yes. So can I have the clicker though? Yeah. So if you look at, and this is what we found actually, so if you look at these numbers here, at this three, maybe just this three, 66% of SLT's senior leadership team, right, indicated they have progressed a minimum of 1 level. 66% of middle leaders progressed by, so basically what is this 1 level, 2 level? So once we collected all of that data, we were looking at, what we were measuring is progress, right? So measuring progress, and we looked at progress by levels. What do those levels mean? Okay, here, if you look at this, so 1 is actually starting, and right? 2 is developing, 3 is establishing, 4 is enhancing, 5 is extending. Okay, maybe to put it in simpler terms, starting actually basically means you're minimally effective, okay, in whatever you're doing. Your professional competency, for instance, in your teaching skills, right, in your leadership skills. So you're minimally effective. 2, developing, you're moderately effective, right? And then establishing is actually effective. You're now effective. If you're at a level 3, you're effective. 4 is you're very effective, and 5 is actually exemplar, right? That means you really, you're really up there, and you actually now can be, an example to others. So when we say move by 1 level, actually that 1 level, actually when you translate it, it means a shift in your knowledge, a shift in your skills, your practice, your pedagogy, and even the way that you think. Right? So your mindset, your belief systems. So, you know, in a lot of people, yeah, throughout their working experience, they don't even make that one level shift. They're the same when they start, and towards the end when they retire, they think in the same way. They take the same approach, for instance. I mean, some people, not all, right? So one shift is very good. So when you say this number of people have actually shifted by one level, it is actually very, very positive. So it doesn't mean that they all started at 1. You know, everybody would start at different levels. Some people may have started at 4, and they have shifted 1, and now they are extending, yeah? But what was really very, very much more encouraging was this. This percentage of people actually progressed 2 to 3 levels, which is absolutely fantastic, right? You now, this is almost like you starting with being a very, okay, maybe I'll take that example of the teacher who threw the book on the floor, right? From a teacher who's thrown a book on the floor, now this is the teacher who is so loving, so engaging in the class, creating that positive environment, never a harsh word, for instance, right? Constantly helping the students. So that's what you would see in even a one shift, forget about 2 or 3 levels, yeah? So when we say shift, we're talking about a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is really a shift in the way that you think, all right? So the 13%, so SLT, for instance, 2 to 3 levels, and this was actually one of our best work actually with the middle leaders. The middle leaders seem to have just absorbed everything and just taken the programs to the next level. So the middle leaders are the ones who actually inform leadership, or rather help leadership, but they also then coach and mentor the teachers. So they support the teachers, and they actually you know, inform senior leadership about the challenges and the needs and the requirements of the teachers. Right? Okay. So those are your school staff. And then we also have here, we then said, okay, I know we're working with teachers, we're working with leaders, and we're assessing them, but what about the students? We did not directly work with the students, we wanted to see what was the impact to the students. Were the students getting anything out of this? Was there a difference to the students? So what we found was, and we were looking, the first thing is we looked at what students thought of the teaching quality in their school. Because actually research says when students have a high perception of teaching and learning quality in the school, it is directly correlated, or it has a positive relationship to learning gains. That means how much they're learning, right, can be assessed by what they think the level of teaching quality in the school is. So you'll be surprised. You think primary school kids can't assess their teachers. They can. They know who are the teachers who are teaching, who are not teaching, who's good, who's, right? Okay. So, and this was great results. We found 91% primary and 88% of secondary school students in the trust school felt that the quality of teaching was high, right? And again, I'm going to take the example of the teacher throwing the book. The teacher is throwing the book because she does not understand how important a school climate is towards the well-being of the child and the learning, you know, how the child progresses in the school. So again, we then also assessed the school climate, because this is something that's very important, and a lot of work that we do in the trust school is actually related to creating that positive learning environment, that positive school climate. So what we found was 79.5% of the students actually indicated that the school climate in the trust schools are actually positive. So great results. And then these are some of the other constructs. Well-being, student outcomes. By student outcomes here, we mean like efficacy. Efficacy is like confidence, right? So these are indicators of student learning, of, you know, all those 21st century skills that we talk about, confidence, communication, they all come from a high level of efficacy. Efficacy means your confidence in being able to do something and do something well. Okay? So, as you can see here, we never talk about results. Are they important? Probably right now where we are. But what we're actually saying within the LEAPED and Trust School is, if we get all of these right, the results will come. They will come later. but you need to get that student confidence first. You need to get that positive learning environment. You need to get students to understand how to actually direct their own learning, to be autonomous, to have a voice, right? To manage themselves, manage their learning, all of those, right? And lastly, we also spoke to parents, and what we found was actually, these are some of the themes that actually came out. This was more around interviews with parents. We couldn't do too many surveys, right? So one was the parents within the trust schools actually indicated they had a good understanding of what were some of our principles in the trust school, what we're trying to do, so that was good. They also felt there was better communication with the school as a result of the school being a trust school, right? So they now had more interactions with the school. They were also very satisfied actually with what was happening with their children. So actually, if you look at some of our interview data, parents are actually saying, finally, I know what my child is doing. I get to speak with the teachers. The children come home. They're talking to me. They're telling me what they're learning. So the high level of satisfaction. And then finally, there was also a much increased level of parent involvement in trust schools. So again, it's really, I don't think it's intentional that the school or the teachers are actually randomly throwing books and treating their kids badly. It's just perhaps a lack of awareness, and once they are aware, right, once the school's community is aware that this is what is required, and this is why we have to do it, as Nina said just now, it's all about the why. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about telling them why it needs to be done, and then them going away and thinking and innovating, okay, if this is the why, this is what I have to do. All right? I think that sums, yeah. So we did the study 6 years into the program, into the trust school program. So we had 6 years runway, and this was data collected, after working with the schools 6 years. Not all the schools were in their 6th year. Some were in their 5th year, some were in their 4th year, some in the 3rd year, but we kind of, yeah. All right, okay, thank you. And now I'm going to, this is data. But like I said, if you go to the school, you will feel that sense. You will feel something different about trust schools. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Brian, who's part of the delivery ground team, who will tell you what is that sense that he gets whenever he's in a trust school.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, so you just got the numbers then. And numbers are good. But numbers are not what we're about. What we're about is students and people, and making a difference to students and people. So to finish off today's presentation, I'd like to take you through a case study and my experience of working with people. So I started in the Trust School program back in 2011, way back at the start, with my colleague Andy. And when we started, we go into, the Trust School is involved in a whole range of schools. Rural, urban, large, small. But for me, personal opinion, one of the most impactful places we can make an impact is in the rural kampong schools. Low socioeconomic, where education can be the difference. End a cycle. So my experience was a small kampong school in Sarawak, okay, back in 2011. And when I entered there, the community thought I was a lost tourist. And the students were shy. I would walk around the school, they would see me and do this. They would not want to look me in the eyes. They were too shy, they were too scared. Who is this person? When we first started in the school, when I would walk around the school, I would hear silence, except for the teacher's voice. And every now and then a chant in answer to the teacher's question. The senior leadership team enjoyed their office, and they were administrators. Okay. So this was the picture of this kampong school. Oh, and lastly, the parents. The parents did not like what was going on. There was a big disconnect. Okay. 18 months later, wow, absolutely incredible. The changes were incredible. So when I first started doing learning walks, when I first started, the teacher would be firmly planted here or sitting down. They would never venture into the classroom. 18 months later, there was healthy noise in the classroom. The students were talking with each other. The teacher was moving around the classroom and asking the students questions, looking at what work they were doing. Same teachers. Healthy noise going on. Students enjoying the smile of that person's face. That child is actually from that school. The difference in the culture of the school had changed. And here's the interesting thing. What it made me realise, there are some world-class teachers in the Malaysian education system. And in my experience, we unlock that potential by giving them opportunities. Because sometimes it's the culture of the school that stops these teachers from innovating and being creative, because they need to get through the curriculum. And so by giving them the support, the school was able to unlock that potential of students and of teachers. And then the senior leadership team become what we call leaders of learners, which meant they were more actively involved in the classrooms, moving around, seeing what's going on. So I just want to give two little stories of the outcomes of this type of change. The first one, I was doing a learning walk around the school, maybe 2 years after the Trust School program had started. And I went past the grade 1 class. And the grade 1 students were there, and they were doing this activity at the start of the morning with a big book. So it was a traditional activity that the teacher did, where she had a big book. She was reading to the students and asking them open-ended questions to elicit responses and get them going with their language. But today, the teacher had got 2 students up the front. Grade 1. One student had the big book. The other student was standing beside them asking the questions. So I thought, this is fantastic. I'll go in and see what this teacher is doing. I walk into the classroom, I snuck, got to the back. No teacher. The teacher was late. The students had decided to do this themselves. Now, you might say, that happens in my school, but the context of where the changes that had taken place in that school, where the grade 1 students had the confidence to start their self-directed learning, start to say, we need to be doing this, let's do that, and set themselves up and have that confidence. That's the sort of thing we're looking for from students, even at this young age of grade 1. Second story. I was sitting with the Guru Besar a number of years, maybe another year or so later, and in walked these 2 students who were from the secondary school, who they'd been in UPSR, they'd gone into the secondary school, they walked into the principal's office and said, "We have a problem. Our new school's not a trust school. They're still teaching the old way. You need to do something about it. It's not fair. We want to do collaborative learning. We want to be able to talk to each other. And we get told off for when we talk. You need to make that a trust school." So I thought that was very powerful, when students themselves can identify what they need for their learning. So coincidentally, sometime after that, that principal got the opportunity in a forum with the education minister to put his hand up. We were sort of quite embarrassed to say, "I've had these students and we need a trust school." And sure enough, sometime after that, that school did turn into a trust school. So this evolution of, we heard all of the data and the stories and everything else, but the evolution of these schools and the students and how they evolve and develop, that's what it's all about. And there is so much potential there. And there are so many stories across all of our trust schools like this, whether it be impact on the parents and the community, or impact on the middle leaders becoming coaches for other teachers. And my final comment is, I've visited a number of schools that I was involved with for many years and haven't been back for a while. And when I walk into the school, it's like, wow, we didn't teach you that. So the schools carry on. So it's the skills the schools are learning. And we are a partner beside the teachers, the SLT. They take all the credit because it's them that have to change. That's the hard part. We're just there as part of the journey. And you know, for someone who's been in Malaysia for 8 years, it's been an absolute privilege to be part of that journey and the whole Trust School and all of the programs that LEAP Ed do. So with that, we're going to finish off. The last word is going to be from the students with a short video.
Trust School is a program which involves certain schools in Malaysia to teachers and students on a different way of teaching and learning.
So Trust Schools are schools that are exposed to new and different types of learning and teaching techniques, and these techniques are suitable to the 21st century way of learning.
From an average student, today I am a high performer in my school because of the significant changes in teaching and learning.
Pas wujud sekolah mana ni, akak nampak Hakim lebih yakin dengan diri, lebih yakin. Lepas tu dia macam lebih semangat, lebih motivasi.
Banyak perubahan yang saya lihat pada diri Hakim. Beliau lebih aktif, lebih yakin untuk bercakap, terutamanya dalam bahasa Inggeris.
Program Sekolah Amanah telah berjaya meningkatkan kualiti pelajar dan juga kualiti guru dalam proses PDPC.
Well, when I first started teaching in the Trust School, peer assessment, instead of me giving the answers, it was much easier for them to actually look into their friends and to see whether did they do the right answer as well. So it's fun, you see.
A lot of new things you get to learn, and it's more towards the future rather than learning from things in the past. You get to learn things in the future which you don't know what's going to happen, and you're trying to discover the new things that's going to happen in the future.
Sekolah yang bagus ialah sekolah yang melibatkan pelajar dia untuk turut sama dalam pembangunan sekolah tu, memberikan keutamaan kepada perlibatan pelajar-pelajar.
I think Trust School has changed my classrooms to become more informative, beautiful, cheerful, and a conducive place to learn. And I think it has changed my school to have a better administration, and we learn new and better, more effective ways to learn.
Wishes for our children come true, right? Okay, so as education and knowledge is not time bound, obviously this session is also not time bound because we've clearly overrun. I'm going to open the floor for a quick Q&A. Yep.
Sorry, because I have kids in school. So the thing is, I want to know how many trust school is it? Is there any listing of trust school? Because I know that some of it, is already applied on this, and some of it is not. So where can we get all this information from?
We'll be distributing the information back. If I can just, one thing that I would always like to challenge myself is to say all the name of the schools.
The
160 schools, except for Kedah.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the schools, perhaps maybe there's a specific areas that you would like to know which school, what are the schools at Trust School. So you want to know generally in Malaysia,
in KL, let's say, just plug it from the.
In KL, we actually have 8 schools, 6 under TSP 1.0 and 2 under TSP 2.0. The 2 schools that we actually have adopted recently are the one next to our building, SK Bangsa and SMK Bangsa. The reason why we actually adopted that school is because, look, these are the schools who actually operates within this corporate community, right? And we are doing all changing the schools. But the kids that go over there are coming from the PPR, all those schools. Who is looking after them? So we decided to sponsor those 2 schools and also implement TSP 2.0, that is SK and SMK Bangsa. The other schools are SK Desa Pandan, SK Convent Jalan Pil, SK Sultan Hishamuddin Alam Shah is next to Bank Negara, if you remember. We have SJKT Vivekananda, those near KL Central. The two SMKs are SMK Cochrane and SMK Taman Maluri.
So this is more on secondary school that you're
No,
implying?
2 secondary schools, 3
And-
secondary schools, and 5 primary schools.
So is there any timeline, like when this will be incorporated in, in all the schools, or is there any?
As far as our program is concerned, because we work based on the sponsorship. So we have corporate sponsors or some individual sponsors who sponsor the transformative programs that we actually want to run. But we also realize that if we want to rely on just sponsorship, the scalability will become slower, because mind you that TSP 2.0 is a very resource intensive. Because we are dedicated at that particular schools. We give them the CPDs, but we also follow through and follow up and support the teachers to implement and apply whatever been taught. But what we actually have done in tandem with MOE is basically to also participate in their call in the TS25 program, where LeapEd was actually the provider for the first year training. So they are taking the learnings. The only difference is that because that's going to be taking a longer time because the resources are there are constraints in terms of resources. Number of schools.
No, number as in ringgit value.
Okay, currently the sponsorship for a school of average size, it takes about 600 ringgit per student per year. Okay, but if you time the number of students, it become a lot. But if you take it for 600 ringgit per student per year, this actually a very, and it's only for 3 years.
I mean, if you want to look in terms of the cost, you know, it's 600 per year for a 3-year program per child.
No, well, okay, without getting too deep into this, because I do also have other questions, but it's the sort of thing where certain schools with certain strong PIBGs would look at this and then get very excited about the potential, right? I might as well go to my question since I have the microphone. And no one's taking this away from me. When you give this presentation, it looks good, it looks fantastic. It looks like, my God, why wouldn't every school want to be a school like this? And then I guess my question is, what is the hard part? Is the hard part the money? Is the hard part the buy-in from the various stakeholders? What is the thing that makes it hard?
All of the above.
Cannot lah. Choose one lah.
It requires so much resilience because we're talking about change. Yeah? School transformation is about change. It's about going into a school community and trying to change mindsets, changing cultures. And a lot of teachers will understandably say, well, why do I need this? I've been teaching 20 years. We're doing perfectly fine. Who are you to come and tell me? And especially, we like to bring in international best practice. And sometimes people think, oh no, why are we bringing in foreigners? But we feel absolutely if Malaysia is to, be on the same level internationally, we have to take in international best practice. So yeah, that is one of the hard parts. What are the hard parts? It's about, add to that.
I think generally the hard part is, again, I just want to echo what Nina is saying, but I really want to enhance further in the perspective of changing in front of people. So can you imagine if you're a right-hander, I ask you to write with your left hand in front of all these people judging you. How would you feel? It's quite nerve-wracking, right? So just imagine the teachers who are actually having to do from just this, their safe space, as what Brian was saying, suddenly have to engage with the students. And mind you, there's also insecurity in them that they don't know how to handle some of these students. Because you know what? Just now when the data was saying that 60% teacher change, 91% students reaction. So like for example, the impact that the teachers have on you if they reprimand you. If I go to you as teachers, how many of us still remember kind words that our teachers have told us? And that actually have resonance in you, right? So that's basically the hardest part. And of course, through your insecurity, that's where we actually put that support system. Okay. And of course, connecting the dot is also another part of it. When we are moving this, we know that we are changing teachers, but it's not just the teachers that is involved. The administrators, the JPNs and the PPDs, and even the parents. Because in the 21st century, parents are also not very easy to deal with, because we have a lot of educated people. But there is also insecurity in them, because lack of skills, they also cannot translate into the communication and articulation.
I mean, actually, that was one of my other, now taking opportunity, cover 2 questions in one go. That was one of my other questions. Of the stakeholders in the schools, right? So you have teachers, guru besar, students and parents, right? And community, but community, I think that's a special case for me. In terms of, to what extent was it really important to get parents buy-in very early? And was it something that was straightforward, or was it something that was quite difficult? And the reason why I asked this is, I remember many years ago I was talking to Lembaga Perperasaan, and they were saying one of the challenges they have when it comes to changing assessment in the country is that the parents, if, whatever you think about the current exam system, parents know if they send their kids to enough tutorial classes, you're going to get results. And what Lembaga wanted to propose was the kind of exam where you can bring all the textbooks into the exam hall, it doesn't guarantee that you pass the exam. So how hard or easy was it to get parents on board, and how important was it?
Actually, it's, to me, at the end of the day, any parents would like to see good things coming out of the child. And the profile, a demographic of emphasis between the urban parents and the rural schools can be very, very different. Some parents want their result scores A's, and that's why we're happy to let our children not helping us in the kitchen to cook so that they can study. But in some majority of the schools that we actually work with, they're just happy to see the kids becoming kind, nice, help them at home, holistic, polite. But these are the kind of skills actually, later on, is going to be very, very useful, especially in terms of networking, having the ihsan or the compassion towards others. That's very important. And if you ask us whether have we succeeded this, to some extent we do, but it's still a long journey. Because I think as long as parents keep on harping, I need to get actually A's. How many of us actually say, oh, I'm proud of my son or my daughter because he is or she is a very kind person. He helps me at home, clean the house. Sometimes we see our kids, oh, you failed. But what they didn't see is, hey, your kid's room is nice, clean, tidy, helpful. Like in my case, I have my mother-in-law staying with me, but it warms my heart every day when I see my kids regards my mother-in-law with utmost respect and kindness. And I think that's actually the way forward. Not just being kind, but also have innovation and solution. And I like the fact that in one cases where there is a problem with when they were trying to resolve, they were thinking like, oh, how this would affect grandma. I think going forward, that's the kind of kids that we actually want. I'm not saying I'm a perfect one, but these are the kind of anecdotal that we actually get from the schools. Maybe you can share some of the parental impact.
I will go back to that school that I was talking about, and I did forget that actually. As I said at the start, there was a very big disconnect between the parents and the school. I think 2 years after that we first started, the parents put together a Teachers' Day celebration for the teachers for the first time in 25 years. The parents were just so happy with the dedication of the teachers because the students were enjoying school. They were so happy to come to school every day. They were finding school interesting. And what's really interesting also about that, we talk about that, coming back to your book that was thrown on the ground, discipline, the Malaysian students are just so kind and relaxed, and discipline things happen when the classroom is boring. So what we find in trust schools, not only are we trying to encourage positive reinforcement, But when the students are interested in what they're doing, you can collaborate with each other, you can talk with each other, you can think. The discipline skills are just not there. So they then feel happy about school. They then go home and talk about what they did at school. The other thing that's really important, and another example, we try to integrate and try and get the parents to understand that they are part of the learning. It's not a case of just sending your child to school and the teacher will teach them everything. And so, again, examples from that school that I was in is that we were teaching getting the parents to come into PRA mathematics classes to help them prepare for grade 1. So over the school holidays, the PRA students could learn some basic mathematical concepts with their parents so that then they could help them when they got into grade 1, they have some mathematical skills. So making sure that the parents feel that they're part of the learning process. It's not just them sending them off to the school. So then we talk about that, I think Zul mentioned it before, it takes a village to raise a child. But in a number of cases that we've been involved in, it has been the school is disconnected from the community. And it's not the village working together with the school, it's very disconnected. And so that's what we see in some situations where, welcoming and if I want to just say one last thing, if parents haven't been educated at a certain level, some feel intimidated to go to the school and talk to the teachers. Sometimes it can be a very, very unsafe environment. And so part of the Trust School program is trying to break down those barriers and create that environment where it's welcoming for parents. It's not intimidating. The parent-teacher exchange is not just about how many A's and how many C's and how many D's. It is talking about their child, okay, in a more holistic manner. And so I think the key word that probably come through is holistic. Holistic and transformation all over.
Okay, just to that question about how, one of the learnings we've experienced in terms of from moving from TSP 1 to TSP 2 is actually if you want to get parents buy-in, you have to do it right at the start. When you start your program, you need to bring all your stakeholders, you need to share your vision with the system, with the parents, with the teachers. You cannot go in and then as an afterthought, connect with the system or then bring in parents. At the beginning, when you have a vision, you have to share that vision before you even start the program with the parents and with all the other stakeholders. So it becomes easier actually if you do that, as opposed to, you start the program and then midway you say, now let's get parents involved. Yeah, if that answers your question, yeah.
So that goes back to that point you made earlier that you found that every school is like different. Like every child is different.
Every school is different. Well, yeah, that's what Nina was saying. There are a lot of resilience, but we also want to say something. When you have passion, it becomes a walk in the park. When you actually have teamwork, I mean, all of us are very, very different, but we all have one thing in common. We want to make sure that every child grows to its potential. Not everybody can become great academicians. And just like I also realized myself, I cannot sing. So not everybody can be a singer too, right? But everybody has its path towards greatness. And we believe that, okay? Sorry to overquote your book, because somehow it resonates.
Yeah, you're on the book and then I forgot my question. Okay, another thing is, because looking at the 600, right, that means if the school is able to get every student on a 50 ringgit basis on every month, so this program will be able to, incorporate in the school, is that what you mean?
No, actually from our perspective is, when we started this, it's supposed to be a public-private partnership. The reason why we wanted to do this without taking the money from the students or from the parent is, at Khazanah level, when we started this, we play, before we actually go to MTNP, our mandate was to actually play with the public school. Because to us, we believe education should be a public good, not a private good, right? So what we are trying to do is, again, if we can actually show impact, that what we are trying to do to the school is, we have more like-minded people or like-minded parties and organizations that come together with us. Because there are a lot of companies out there doing CSR work. But the question is, how effective are those? How sustainable are those? Some companies, some private companies go to the schools. One, they create tuition program. Once their fund finished, what happened to the kids? Okay, so the incoming kids, they have no program for them. Some, they built beautiful libraries, beautiful computer labs, but it's a one-off funding. And sometimes the school are being burdened in doing or having to maintain. And there are many instances whereby beautiful building, after 10 years or after 5 years, it becomes a worn-out horror house building. And we actually have in one school whereby the Makmal computer or the computer lab become a snake infestation place. Because the computer is no longer working, nobody can actually go there. But what we are sharing today is, what's important is to actually create that learning environment, the soul of the education, and not the tangible ones. So where we are, our level of change is teachers, schools, classroom. If you actually tackle this, you will actually have a sustainable quality of education. Because as I mentioned to you, all of us are human beings. We are all experienced creatures. As we have more experience, we become better. So if we spend a lot of time upskilling our teachers, the future generations of kids will continue having better and better teaching and learning in the schools. We even have case studies whereby, I mean, this is at the middle stage of the schools, whereby when all the experienced teacher leave, suddenly a lot of things drop. The quality of the schools drop, not only just from academic results, but also other teaching and learning qualities.
A lot of people talk about Finland. Unfortunately, we do have a Finnish advisor, but he's not well today. And I think the lesson that we can learn from Finland, okay, I know it's a very different context, small population, blah, 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 but when they started their transformation journey, they started with that. They focus on the caliber, on the software, rather than the hardware. And for us, it's not about education is not bricks and mortar. Education is about the connections and the contacts that we make with each other, and a teacher who can facilitate that and understands that and has the passion to do that. So if you look at Finland, their focus has been on high caliber teachers in their system. And as a result of that, they can have a lot of autonomy in their system. Yeah, I mean, they still have a national curriculum, but there's a lot of autonomy to schools, to teachers, to students, you know, to determine their own learning. So I think, you know, of course, we're probably quite a long way yet, but yes, question.
So meaning your focus is actually to find stakeholders to invest this program into the school.
We wouldn't want to go down the route of charging.
We are not selling a product.
Yeah.
We are selling, okay, or engaging people to be with us. Yeah. Okay, just like when we go to MTNP, they come with us saying that I have all this stuffy, smart school, but they cannot interview well. You know, they cannot interact well. So the thing is, we can become any training provider where we can actually sell this is one training and, you know, have 3 hours session. But what's the sustainability and impact of that? Because majority people come in class, when they go out, they can only retain 70%. By the second day, it's 30%. But in our CPD, we make sure that you learn, you apply, you reflect, and in applying those knowledge, new knowledge that you acquire, you dare to admit if you make mistake, because we encourage a safe space of learning. Okay, sorry. I know that you've been wanting to ask, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so what I can understand is from this program is how we enhance our education learning skills. But one thing I'm quite want to ask is that how or have it impacted in coping disciplinary problems among students? How have it coped?
I have a lot of stories to tell, okay, and a lot of data to tell. But I'm just going to be just give a general. In majority of the schools that we actually have been in, you can actually see improvement in terms of attendance and drop in terms of disciplinary issues. Okay, these are all information that you can actually see from MOE itself. But talk about attendance, I just want to talk about specific incidents. Many schools have truancy issues, but interestingly, the root cause of that truancy differs from one school to another. For example, SMK Bangsa that we recently adopted, the students didn't go to schools not because of they are bad people, they are bad students, because they want to actually help with their parents and maintain their lifestyle living in the city. And they have mega malls, and when they go to the work part-time, they didn't come to school. And sometimes they think it's more attractive for them to actually be at workforce at early age than to actually go to schools, because they didn't see the value of that. There's also some schools that we actually have been in, whereby every time when it rains, 50% attendance will drop. Because there is only one bridge connecting the nearby kampong where majority of the students are there, living there. They cannot go to schools. Okay, that is a sad case. And then in the most extreme case that I want to actually share is we have this one Orang Asli school where the level of awareness about having the kids to go to school is so low among the parents that they couldn't be bothered to send their kids. So if the kids want to sleep, because Orang Asli have a different psyche, they feel that, okay, every kids have the right to, in existence, who are we as a parents to force the kids to go to school? So the level of engagement that requires from each of these schools in terms of developing program to address it requires basic skills among our teachers and its leaders, do the analysis, understand the root cause, and develop relevant program that is appropriate in your context. In this case, for the SMK Bangsa, we have not implemented this. They are looking at what would be the entrepreneurial program for my financial management, understanding how your career progression, so that you'll be able to see that coming to school is important because it will bring me to greater heights. In the case of one of the schools who have that issues, they work with the local business over there to actually provide transportation, build better bridges, and also provide that capability to bring the kids in the event of rain so that it will reduce. In the case, it's actually an Orang Asli schools. The teachers went actually over there and sometimes create teaching classroom within that community. So it requires different intervention. And what we are doing, just like we believe that we are coaches for future Roger Federers. Okay? Because each of these schools have its own unique way. If you go to most of a matured school, you cannot see that, hey, is this a scratch school? They only have one feature. Teachers are capable, the administrators are capable, and the students are very engaged. But the programs that they actually do, it's really, really up to the skills of the teachers and the capability of the schools to develop relevant programs and effective programs. Okay. So I'm sorry, I over-answered your... Okay. Okay, so probably we have one day and we actually line up all our advisors here. We can tell you stories. I can cry and cry again, and But I mean, at the end of the day, we just believe, we in LeapEd and together with Yayasan Ami and Khazanah to a large extent, believe that we need to do this if we want to actually create a better future for our country. I mean, that's the only way we do. A lot of people criticize. We do know that the academic results is no longer relevant if you want to bring this this country to a greater heights, right? Oh yes, just now we have in KL we have SJKT Vivekananda. In Selangor we have SJKT Ladang 4. 2 minutes left. Okay, in Johor, we have SJKT Kangkapulai. We also have SJKC Yuming 2 in Pontian. And of course, Sekolah Agama, we have it. We have Sekolah Orang Asli. So we have Sekolah Berasrama Penuh, MCKK, TKC, and Science Mengenai Science Kuching are also trust school. The idea is this program is not just for the lower level, but it's also for a higher level. Because we believe if you are there, you have space to move up. But if you have up there, you need to actually continue pushing the envelope for the future. They have different sponsors. They have different sponsors. Yes, majority are private sectors.
What is the trigger? I mean, is it that basically Khazanah reaches out to local?
No, actually through Yayasan Ami and through us as well, we actually approach. We actually approach potential funders. Okay, yeah, corporations. Some corporations, honestly speaking, in whatever reasons they are, whether it's for media, publicity, or in true sense, CSR, to us, it doesn't matter. What matters is the kids at schools are getting the better future. That's all. So some companies use that as a basis of they have a lot of students, a lot of their staff send the student to their schools, they sponsor the schools. Some altruism because they believe that this is actually a low like in two of our schools in Lembah Subang was sponsored by Time.com because they believe that these are the low socio-economic, they want to actually do some CSR. But they also, some actually sponsor schools because it actually increase the value of the property that they are operating in because they actually have a quality schools. There's so many reasons. So regardless of whatever your motive is, the impact is on the kids. So to us today, when me and my colleagues over here stand up to share with all of you, and I'm glad that we actually have this opportunity to share with all of you, it's first to highlight the good things that we wanted to do. And along the way, we hope there are more people come and participate in our journey.
So if we write about this, then parents get super excited because we're so skilled as writers. Yeah. What can I put into my last paragraph? Yeah. Like call to HSA. Parents, call you, just call you. Call us. Your handphone number.
Okay, no. Do you have a corporate deck? Okay, I also don't want to have people calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Parents,
For example, do you guys have like a roadshow or like, an upcoming like events that you all put so that, I don't know, maybe the call to action we can just put in the next one? I don't know, something like that.
Can I just give context to that? Before this, we didn't do that. We actually do it in a bit of a incognito, in a very low profile. The idea is we want to actually see how this works. Honestly speaking, just now when Dr. Susila was saying, when we started TSP 1.0, it's like for the first time we are marrying somebody that we have not met before. Okay? Well, I'm looking at, okay, sorry. You got very... I don't mean to intimidate you, and along the way, that's where we learn a lot of things, like how do you engage parents, how do you engage the systems, how to talk to ministry, and there are a lot of, people can become very skeptical for the first time that you met and you're working together, but I guess that's where the move after 8 or 9 years, we actually come to that landing whereby we can move to the next level, and this is where we feel right now is the best time for us to start doing this. And that's the reason why we start calling the media. We want to brief what we are doing today. And I know relying on your skills, this is where we leverage on potentials that you guys already realized, okay, in order for us to actually bring this forward. Like you mentioned just now, the amount of money involved per student is 600 ringgit. Of course, when you aggregate it, it becomes huge. But do we want to actually go and collect 50 ringgit from parents for each of the children? No. Yeah.
You started it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's just that I think there are a lot of administrative things that we need to actually do, collecting public money, and we don't want to actually go to my account and there will be a lot of questions, okay? And I may be meeting some of you in the less. Okay. Okay. When we do this, again, when you talk about impact, we also put certain conditions to our sponsor. I think this is where sometimes it really takes passionate corporate entities to be with what we are doing. Because we don't want to dial down what we want to do, because if we said if it's 3-year commitment, you have to commit 3 years. There's a contract signed between those organizations and us. Because otherwise, we'll be forever at the mercy of fund. So in order for you to do this, because we don't want to jeopardize the kids after the 2nd year, we've learned that a lot when there are all these tuition programs that was actually stopped halfway. So you're saying the transformation program 3 years? Yep. It used to be 5 years, now it's 3 years.
Why are you more efficient sekarang?
Actually, my question is just direct. So as a parent, what can I do if I want my school to be a trust school? Who do I contact?
This one, I bagi pada Nina. I just jadi tukang angkat.
Okay, well, it really is a public-private partnership, right? So it's us working with Yayasan Amir, working with BPSH, which is the schools division of MOE, and with sponsors. So please approach us. We can try and see together if there are any potential sponsors that would be willing to come forward. Sorry? The PTA can, and there was a school previously that did try to come forward, but it's always going to go back to this. Yes, you might have 80% of teachers who, parents who agree, but what about the 20%? It's like your security guard house situation. I know there's an economic term for it. Yeah. Okay? So that is a problem. One, very prominent school with very prominent active parents tried. There have been a few. Alumni have also tried. We have alumni groups of, very well-established schools who feel, sad because their school have declined. They want to give back as well. So, yeah, there are various different options, but it has to be co-construction. It cannot just be us saying, okay, we're going to make you into a trust school. Everybody has got to be a willing party. Cannot be a forced marriage, right?
I guess in this case, if I were to actually, step one, when you want to actually rally people, is to see the good things that we are trying to do and the good things that has happened on the ground. Because just like when we learned through TSP 1.0, in TSP 2.0, we engage parents up front. The reason why we are able to do that effectively is because some of these parents are also exposed to what has happened in TSP 1.0. In TSP 1.0, the reason why parents start engaging with the school is because they see the child, the differences in their own children. I think what we are trying to do with all of you today is, first, let's talk about the good things that we actually have done. And sorry? Of course we have bad things, like me arguing with Nina what to wear tomorrow, should I wear a batik shirt, and we do that a lot, okay? But the thing is what we are trying to do here is, if everybody knows what we are trying to do, and we all rally about, it's not about academic play anymore, it's about growing your child, I'm sure if I were to, if a teacher reacts very positively to you, even at the early stage, you will become somebody that you never even thought of who you're going to be. And I think each one of us will always remember the kind words that our teacher says to us that we still hold dear to our heart. And I believe that. And as I remember, because one of my teachers also said to me that, Zul, you are a survivor and you are the most adaptable person that I've ever seen. Okay? So, and I believe in that. And until now. Okay? But what we are also trying to, we hope by engaging all of you, is to see, those kind of things that we actually have impact, hopefully we'll be able to bring all of you to our schools one day, maybe. Milin, you can help, right? To see, those numbers, this is always like what my argument with Dr. Susila. Good numbers, okay? But more importantly is like what Brian was saying, the impact that the kids have. The family, the teachers, you know, when we come to a school, some of the earlier schools that we actually go, the teachers also say, I cannot teach when people start observing me. Now when you go to school, some of the teachers and some of the students couldn't be bothered that you are in the class because they are so engaged. If you have a way to sneak into SK Sultan Hishamuddin Alam Shah, okay, I'm sure you guys, press people, are very, very creative in getting information. Look at how the schools are. And there was one time we actually bring a visitor to this particular class, and they were surprised that during that time they still do streaming. That was the last class, and yet the conversation is very, very rich. You know? So I guess that's the first step. Yeah. I guess when it comes to creating the impact, getting more people, this is where what we will actually follow through. We just want to make sure that people know that there are a lot of caring Malaysians and even non-Malaysians in this organization, because we embrace diversity, we have inclusiveness, and yet maintain our own identity, and we believe that Malaysia should move forward in that direction.